They say some stories should never be told, buried deep in silence and fear. Welcome to the realm of nightmares. Welcome to Story from Shadow.
When I first entered El Nasir, I felt a strange aura as it is. There was someone who entered with me, especially when the elevator moved to the 37th floor. At that time, Ahmed's uncle was nervous, especially since this was his first day working in his new place and a new city. The important thing was that the elevator door opened and he got out of it and moved towards Yasmin, the reception secretary, who was moving her hands on the keyboard in a strange way. Without even looking at Waris, they also found that the first time when the boy went to her, she smiled with new bread as it was. She was sorry that he was coming now, and the boy was shocked because this secretary was his old girlfriend. Suddenly she pulled out a knife and said, "You're finally here, baby, waiting for you from early age." But it becomes clear that the boy was imagining, and the woman said to him, "Are you looking at him? Come on, don't blame yourself." After that, I took him to meet him in his office, which was in Ouadalma, and there were how many people like this. The important thing was that the first time he sat at the desk, he found some paper, and it turned out that it was some notes written on it, that the accounts of the $1,000 must be paid at the end of the day. The important thing was that the boy remained sitting at the desk and began working all the time until 11 o'clock came. So he got up, he made him a cup of tea and returned to continue, but he was shocked. All the files on his device were erased and the boy printed his followers. He kept trying to return any files or accounts, but unfortunately it failed completely. The clients started taunting him about their accounts, which were full of money, and they deleted it until he received a call from the manager, who kept taunting him after he went to his office, especially during Umrah. They sent him many messages and complaints, and the boy naturally told him, "I swear to God, I was the one who did this. This is for sure, this is for sure. These are my old lover's daughters." But the manager didn't care and said to him, "Are you? You have 6 hours left. Causing problems for him will be solved quickly. Consider yourself a fool." Ahmed returned to his office and started playing on the computer and trying to restore the things that had been erased. Of course it's late, and each unit in the office, after a while the lights began to turn on its own. Shaw heard the creepy laugh in the place. Suddenly in the darkness he looked towards the net, and lucky for Scary he holds a knife and looks at him with a large drink. At that time the boy followed the other. Cut. When he found a question written on the scarf in blood red, he asked him, "Is it? Promise me you'll love me forever, my love." Suddenly Data appeared, frightening eyes, looking with great hatred. They fought, pulling his bag, running towards tanks, but unfortunately its color turned friendliness, stood helplessly, feebly. Staircase far from the office, Scout appeared saying, "Remember? The first day I saw you. Remembered your lies, cheater, traitor. Death on Eddie." Then he fell to the ground in shock and fear, but he saw a heavy stapler on the ground. He was protecting himself, while Patrina D began to move towards him, her eyes all like she was saying to him, "I know that I am the one who met the file and appointed you in this department to rid you of you, destroy you, and destroy your entire life." And I patted him. "Do you tell him? We think that when you copy my number and change your address and number you will run away from me. Me, Ahmed? You are still wrong. I have 3 years left watching you and knowing everything about you, and I am the reason why you take advantage of any job you go to. I am the one who destroyed your job and is angry with you, but that's it. I have taken revenge on you now, and I will take revenge on you, Ahmed." He moved quickly from his place. He grabbed Hariri's extinguisher so he could hit her with it, but she didn't care about the one who laughed with her big mole. At that time the boy became nervous and said to her, "My hero is crazy, girls. What we have is over." "That's it, don't make yourself clever," the girls told him. "If he had given her, I wouldn't have. On the street, Professor Omar eats it for a whole week just to see you and beg you to come back to me." Then she approached, knife in hands, spot, ball, hatred, looked pain, loving him, remaining silent. Decides to abandon her, disappear. Girl goes crazy, love made her crazy, revenge at the time. Ahmed stapled her face, sending away in pain, laughing hysterically, jaw quickly, coaster budging net, succeeding breaking. Minad moving towards bleeding hardest, didn't care, told him, "Will you go? We are in League 37, my love. If you jump from here you will die and break. If you stay here we will talk for a while and I will leave too." At that time he preferred to grieve the paper with fear and said to her, "Are you crazy? You, certainly not natural. I didn't love you, lady. Spying me in my situation." At that time she laughed with drinking and extreme anger. At that time Ahmed also went crazy and jumped out of the net. But before he sat on the ground, he stepped on a fire escape alarm and sold it instead of falling on the ground. Of course, the broken boy fainted. After a while there was no breath in the hospital, and girls, he was arrested after the security man stopped his screaming. Of course, the girl was in prison with a lot of taste. There was no murder attempt while the manager came to apologize to him because a case against the company would not work, but Ahmed was not interested and submitted his resignation and contacted the entire company. He is still afraid of calling the crazy woman who loved her uncle, and she would have been killed in a moment of anger. Today was the first day for Leah to work in the meaning of Lux Lucor, meeting Uncle Fatah. "May God be with you and continue your work. No one's origin lasts forever." Then he handed me a revelation and cursed me. His eyes had changed, telling me to leave. "Beware of statues so that you can always follow people. The important thing remains, my friend, I was working in the store among the statues that they use as models, but the place was very strange and the lights in them were fixed and even the shape of the statues was a little scary. Their preparation was large in different sizes and shapes, distributed everywhere, broken and die in boxes. The key point is Fatih's uncle came again. You put them in a system like this so that we can stop using them. And advice, my son, try to leave P before 12 at all. Wow, try to ignore any strange sounds you hear. And Sabu locked the door hard on him. After a while, Mustafa began to work, finish the statues and divide them in such a place. Of course he was afraid of the strange sight of their eyes and felt that they were watching him for a while, and he began to hear strange whispering voices in the place. Suddenly he heard a clattering sound around him, like the sound of nails clattering on metal coal noir. She began to warm up and burn alone. At that time Mustafa stood in a place lightly, and I was not carrying the statue, and he spoke nervously. There is someone here, but he kept looking around him while he was afraid, until suddenly he had a statue standing with his intention, and looking at it with looks that were strange to the point that it did not appear that it was a statue at all, except that Mustafa is sure that he had moved the statue before to another place. At that time he was closer than the statue and he said, are you sure I moved you before? But suddenly she plays when she has the eyes of a statue. After she was black, she became an egg that resembled human eyes. At that time Mustafa tried to reassure himself by saying, Sure, I imagine it is impossible for his eyes to have changed like that. This is a statue. And then they moved the men's department like this and in its place. Shocked after a loyal job or statues. Strange. The first time he sees it, other statues have moved from their place, and a statue in the shape of a child sitting on the window, and every time they change their places, they find them moving again. At that time the ladder went out because of Fatih's ear and said to him, What can I tell you, Haraj? Is there anyone with me under the statues moving alone? Why would I move it? At that time Fatih told him, No, there is no one else in the place, but the shows are there, their place. They can play with you for a while and give you 2 pills. But take care to get out of here alive. There was tension, a sense that it was in it. Good and not normal in this place. But he had to continue his work until work resumed. He finished and the store remained closed. The lights went down on their own. Before Mustafa came out of the store, the lights turned completely and he heard a frightening whisper around him. At that time he turned on the phone and turned on the searchlight quickly and tiredly because there was a standing statue. Exactly what he meant. When he shone more with the searchlight, he was shocked when he found himself turning into statues, all of them staring at him on a large street. At that time Baraba spoke and said, Oh Lord, be a prank. Oh God, it's a prank. Uncle Fatih, get me out of here. But unfortunately the store was closed and Fatih's uncle also disappeared. Mustafa stood alone. Terrifying statuses came to him at Asnasir. It was broken and the end of the ladder moved, hitting standing statues, blocking the road. Their eyes were weird and their tattoos scary. Every time he looked, they moved and changed places. Observing them kept them still. Fear made him move, not knowing what to do, especially since the battery was running out. After a while the scout dawned and faded at the same time. He noticed a statue of movement in a distant place. When Mustafa stretched out his chest when they moved, there were no audible steps. Suddenly Fatah appeared and said, I'm sorry Mustafa, but they need a new person every now and then to let me live. Mustafa asked, What exactly do you mean? Her watch? She laughed and replied, I mean, this is an agreement between me and them. Every now and then, he presents them with a new victim so that they can let me get out of here. I have been imprisoned here for 20 years because no one is willing to work in my place and they all leave early. But you are dressed. Congratulations on the execution. Suddenly the spotlight disconnects. The last thing Fatih's strange eyes saw was a frightening silence like statues, not statues, and a frightening whisper, Father. Then I heard the sound of the statues from their place and what happened. Suddenly he touched his body, and they hold him accountable. Fatah was standing behind them and saying, Don't do them, let them have fun like this, you won't feel any pain. UW will only remain like us. Suddenly statues touched his face, surrounding him everywhere. Mustafa moved violently, running, knocking down statues until reaching the emergency door, continuing to knock with all might. Even Fatah's mother ordered quickly to run down the street far from the cursed meaning. He asked about the house, deciding never to come back, keeping his salary. Later, he overcame his fear and left his house. The store for statues in Bakash continued. They feel like they're watching him. Suddenly he noticed a statue resembling Fatih. Looking at him calmly, Mustafa remained in fear, thinking about what happened, and I don't know how he will forget this evening. Today, let's visit Al Hayat Hospital, and this is an old hospital on the mountain road. The important thing is that I arrived and met the head nurse, Madame Fawzia, and began to get to know the departments and rooms in the hospital. But suddenly a boy was running towards them at all his speed, and he looked terrified and afraid as if there was a monster chasing him. You will learn how to guide him and make him take himself for a while, and after this I know that there is a patient in the room who has a serious seizure, and when Fawzia first asked him the patient's name, he told her, Nahid is the one I call for, I never know how to give it to her. At that time Fawzia asked, How much will you spend? Isn't it because the nurse cared? She took a vacation and they won't know how to deliver her time. Han thought to add 6 to prove herself, saying she cared about her. She took many courses in caring for disabled and elderly, knowing well Fawzia and Menem voted for each other, hesitated but decided to let her care. The key point was Hein moved, getting to know the patient and take her to the bathroom. On the way she asked about her condition. He said, this woman hasn't come here for an hour. She is very strange and isolated, can't stand herself. Sometimes she trains. What she meant left us. We bonded, locking her in the room. One time opened nurse's brain and gouged out nurse's eye. Then you win it. She patted them and told her, in general, her condition is difficult and poor because her husband used to torture and beat her all the time. One day Zakran returned to his house and Fadl beat her and her someday I killed the boy, and then fled. Since then, the club has not moved from its place. Most of the time she doesn't control herself. This caused her urinary incontinence. She needs someone to go to the bathroom constantly and take care of her. The important thing was to fear the room, which smelled rotten and was very difficult. I was shocked when I found the state contented with strong belts, and when I focused on her appearance I found her skin and hair gray. Her eyes are red and scary. He painted himself with anger and violence. The important thing is that Fawzia spoke nervously and told her, how? A hint. The new nurse who will take care of you and help kiss your hand, cooperate with her. Don't turn it off. At that time Nahi shook her clothes in agreement without speaking. She's looking at India from top to bottom with such a monopoly. The important thing is that he remains soft before the wheelchair, and they took her off the bed and put her on the chair. Then one of them told her, you leave it loose as soon as the slow one turns red again quickly and returns it because of it again. Indeed, Hind spared his words and did not. I'm afraid of Nahid, and this is because she has dealt with very violent patients before, especially the state, so they are aware of our weaknesses and she is stronger than them by stages. The important thing is that she was able to open her mouth and she was watching Menem, who had left them, and walking, and when she looked towards Nahid she found her looking at her with her scary red eyes. Of course, the girl followed her, but she didn't care and went into the bathroom with her and began to see her work and clean this strange state, until suddenly she spoke in her deaf voice and said, here she is still locked inside the guard, and this woman was surprised and said to her, who is she? Her watch. The end of her head moved frighteningly, and she approached her and said to her, she's the one who helped me cut his throat. Do you know how to make a person bleed when cutting veins? At that time Hind played and Laura quickly returned, kissing her with great fear and saying to her, what do you mean? Her watch. Bisharabibi smiled and said, if I had it in my hands I would have cut you all up and killed you one by one. She laughed, disguising, eyes red, black widened. Ro listened. Suddenly her light began to go out and turn on by itself. Something new appears. At that time spoke nervously, saying, we're done, let's tie you and bring you back. Forget quickly. But before I approached her, I found her acting very angry and terrifying. She continued to move from the chair to attack her, but we saw Menem, who heard the sound of the screaming, ran towards them quickly and gave her a tranquilizer, and they returned her to the bed again and said to her, I know that what happened is strange, but we are used to her condition and she often has a nervous breakdown like this. Hind knew by Nahid's words about the goblin who helped her. It was clear that her husband, the censorship, cut off with a scalpel quickly and suspiciously. Unfortunately, Gosh lacked evidence that the club killed him, nor found a weapon. The crime was a month ago, and Hind always confused, sleepless, thinking about the end, missing weapon, and the locked woman.